Hello guys, Daniel with Driving and Dragons. Whew, boy do we have one to cover today. Well, 280ZX doing some more tinkering, pulled the distributor off, working on the air cleaner, placing a hose there, just trying to get some things right. I ended up having to test the spark and found out that I'm not getting spark, so I think my distributor might be bad, and the ignition has already been changed, so it shouldn't be that, but you never know. Sometimes you get bad parts, but that's where we're at on it. Be doing some work pulling that stuff off in the video today, and changing a headlight. Easy stuff, but not so easy stuff when we start talking about tabletop role-playing game, hobby, community, whatever you want to look at, because I had a whole thing written up for this, and now I'm just here kind of going off the cuff because it's one of those things where more gets piled on. It's like, well, I have to rewrite everything. By the time I'm done rewriting it, it's probably going to come right back. But it is the Shadowdark situation. Holy hell. You want to talk about a beautiful little microcosm of everything that's wrong with internet culture and modern discourse, all bundled up in one nice, neat little thing. You have this situation with Shadowdark, the OSR, the Bro SR, the OSR adjacent, 5E people, etc., going off on Twitter and YouTube and probably TikTok and Rumble and everything else under the sun while you're at it. And it's really kind of stupid, but at the same time, like I said, it's a perfect example of the way we handle political discourse, social discourse, and everything else, and all in a nice, neat little bundle. Because you can think of the 5th edition player base or the general tabletop role-playing game community as almost your undecided voter, your John Q. Public, your person who's not terminally online, the rest of the world, so to speak, not the vocal minority, and how they look out and see things. And then you can look at the various factions within the OSR, Bro SR, etc., as both your political parties, your political affiliates, your social affiliates, and then with your requisite figureheads and candidates and stuff involved. And the issue, of course, is the game Shadowdark. Let's just, for posterity here, let's say, put out what Shadowdark is. Shadowdark is a modified BX OSR style game that has taken solid elements from 5th edition and the majority of the gameplay from BX and has merged them together to make a new game that is compatible with old Dungeons & Dragons modules from back in the 70s and 80s, and it's done so very successfully. The person who did it, I'm not super familiar with her, but Miss Kelsey, she comes out, and this girl has apparently put in 10 plus years worth of work, has been a designer before of adventures and other types of modules and whatnot. Classic example is what somebody said in the stream with Black Lodge Games last night of an overnight success that started 10 years ago, which is usually the case. The guy who blows up on the scene and you hear a bunch of people coming out yelling and screaming, oh my God, got everything handed to him in 3 weeks. I've been putting all this time into this, the 40 years. I've been a dungeon master for 40 years and can't get this done. And she just comes out of nowhere and all of a sudden she's a success. It's like, yeah, she came out of nowhere 10, 15 years ago. I don't know how long. She met Gary Gygax at one point. So I don't know how long she's been playing games, but she's been designing and writing and a presence for at least 10. It's just that nobody knew until nobody really saw that public consciousness till she blew up. And what's funny is I'll bet you if you dig back enough, a lot of these people who are crybabying and whining that she doesn't deserve her success and everything were probably some of her biggest fans up until she had this success. And a lot of it is just bucket crabs and sour grapes, and we see that on a regular basis. For those who don't know, bucket crabs are the theories that if you put a bunch of crabs in an open top bucket, no matter how many crabs you put in there, they'll never get out, because while they could just kind of crawl over each other and come over the side of the bucket, they never will, because when one starts to get to the top, the others will reach up, grab its legs, and pull it down in an effort to get themselves up. And the result is every one of them stays in the bottom of the bucket. this is what you've got with OSR content creators, and I am using that expression very loosely. And Shadowdark. Shadowdark came out, $1 million Kickstarter, gets all this support, does tremendous grassroots, grass level, like root level marketing, the kind of stuff that everybody who is trying to put something together should be doing, the kind of stuff that I'm starting to do as I'm putting together my 3612 D30 system game. She was in with the community. She asked some people to do stuff. She did pay for one review, but she paid a reviewer to do a review. For those of you, I've already done a whole video on this. I'll make sure I link this below. I'm also going to link several of these other things below with the Basic Expert and RPG Pundit and Black Lodge Games and Double D. But paying for a review does not make a review bad. When you pay a reviewer, especially a reviewer who that's all they do, you are paying them for time and exposure. You're not paying them to say good things about your game, and they're not necessarily inclined to say good things about your game when you do that. It's kind of it's almost like a nuclear button. It's, you know, when you pay to push the button, but once it's pushed, and that's it, whether you get good or bad. And when you talk about Questing Beast, who is the only confirmed person that Kelsey paid for a review, it's fully disclosed right up front. Hey, I get paid to do this. I get free stuff to do this, but I'm paid to do a fair and honest review, because if my reputation is tarnished by slanting my reviews in favor of people who pay me and then turning around and doing reviews that are bad for people who don't, then all I do is generate all you learn from my review is who paid me and who didn't pay me. And my reputation is trash anymore. So somebody like Questing Beast has to do at least somewhat fair reviews, because if they don't, the money stops rolling in, and you can only get paid once or twice by the same group to review a game in most situations. So let's just let that slide. A paid review is not automatically untrustworthy or bad. They're a very common practice in literally every industry on the planet. So, and the other reviews that she's gotten are not paid reviews. Most of them aren't even reviews where somebody got a free copy. Probably an overwhelming majority of them are reviews of people who literally bought her game. And then you'll hear people say, well, you know, the people jumping to her bandwagon, a lot of them, like Black Lodge Games, of course, you know, they're protecting the cash cow because they done hooked onto her coattails. No, the woman put out a system. She put out a game that follows the OSR conventions, is compatible with OSR Play, and OSR content creators are creating stuff that is simply saying it's compatible with her game and using her marketing engine to support their own efforts. It is no different than you coming out with a new module and saying, this is BX compatible, this is AD&D compatible, this is OSR compatible. All you are doing is telling people that, hey, you need to buy my game because you don't have to do anything extra or special. You can use my setup, what's essentially my BX homebrew rules, or you can plug this into the game you already own. Saying I made a game that is, or I made adventures that are compatible with Shadowdark, or I made a supplement that is compatible with Shadowdark, is no different than saying I have an OGL content game that is compatible with 3.5, or I have written a game that is 5e compatible, or I have written a supplement that works for Basic or Redbox or AD&D 1 or 2nd edition or whatever the case may be. It's no different. She has created a vehicle for which these content creators who have always been creating content for other games can produce more. That is not a hit against those content creators. It is also not a hit against her. These are the kind of things that need to go away. Also, going back to the bad faith arguments, and one of the things that I discussed in my video about arguing online and discussing TTRPGs, because debate's important. And me personally, when I look at the OSR, when I started making my own project, I was determined that I wanted to make a new system that addressed what I saw as some of the core issues with D20 mechanics. And I wasn't going to be able to do that simply by making some sort of 3.5 retro clone or BX retro clone to try and push out there to get my ideas across and say, well, here's my 3.5 edition homebrew, because that's the D&D edition I have the most experience with. I said I'm going to create a whole new thing because I want to fix these problems. That's not the path for a lot of people. And when you see what they've done here, and you want to sit here and attack it for no reason other than sour grapes, you don't produce anything good for either side here. And when we talk about some of the stuff that's come up, we've started to do a lot of the guilt by association and guilt by not association nonsense arguments that happen. And it comes down to, it's like, oh, well, we don't know what her political, she must be lefty, we got to get her. No, she's done exactly what you're supposed to. You know what you're not supposed to do? Say, I'm not going to have anything to do with anybody who has any leftist or right-wing political views. That is wrong. That is bad. That is the cancel culture shit that has to stop. Okay? If RPG Pundit makes a good game that I enjoy playing, I'm going to buy his book and I might run his system. Okay? If the Basic Expert makes a system that I enjoy or makes a supplement that I enjoy, I'm going to buy his supplement. If the crazy lesbian sword people made a game that I enjoyed, I would buy it. I would play it. Okay? If I have somebody who is a, wee-wee chopping crazy ladyboy that wants to play at my table, as long as that's not what they're bringing to my table, then I should have them at my table. We should even be able to have polite discourse with political opinions we disagree with. Where the problem comes in and where you start needing to push back, or you start needing to boycott, or you start needing to cut people out, is when they start using political affiliation as the purity test. When they start saying things like, we can't get the white guys in their basement out of this game fast enough. When they start saying that we don't need any white people in this game, it needs to be all about diversity. When they start trying to rewrite history. When they start trying to villainize or demonize people for the same. I have a very simple stance on cancel culture. Or when it comes to who needs to be boycotted, pushed out, and canceled. It is a mutually assured destruction thing. I am not going to try and cancel you for your beliefs as long as you are not trying to cancel me for mine. And when it comes to the game table, as long as you are not disrupting my game table with your politics, with your social nonsense, with your religious views, as long as you are getting along and following the ultimate golden rule of don't be an asshole at my table, you're welcome regardless of what you believe. And I expect the same in return. That is how everybody should be playing these games. As long as they have not become disruptive, you should not be having a problem with it. Now, one of the issues that has come up is the left in particular has hyper-aggressive social purity tests and social movements. When they adopted predominantly during the Obama administration, he was really the one who dumped gas on this fire. But when identity politics became everything to the left, that is when a lot of this problem started. Because most of these leftists, and I'm not doing this as a political rant here, but it's just the truth, and that's what we're here for, is the truth. When they adopted identity politics, things for them became about their identity rather than about them as a person or about their ideas. It has nothing to do with their political ideas. It has to do with how they identify and the identity attached to them. And that is a very important distinction. Here's why. If I come after your ideas, you don't get angry. You defend your ideas. We have discussions. You may even alter or change your idea. But when I come after your identity, that means everything I say is now a personal attack, which you're going to have a personal response to. It is no longer me trying to undermine your ideas to build my own. It is no longer me trying to create a counterpoint to what you're saying to try and convince you one way or another. It is now me going after the core of your being, which is the kind of attack that requires a, for lack of a better expression, violent response. Because you can't have that kind of attack and it not be personal. And the left, particularly in America, but the left in most European nations as well, has done a very good job of tying their political ideology into their followers' identity. So that's why you see this more on the left than on the right. Your left-wing game designer comes out, and these right-wing players have to be excised, have to be pushed out, have to be destroyed. Their companies have to be burnt to the ground. They have to be eliminated, not because we have political disagreements, but because our political disagreements have been built into their brain that it is an attack against their very being. The problem is the retaliation from those of us who have more conservative leanings or are more on the right has allowed our own crazies to come up out of the woodworks and push the same, where we go after people with these purity tests. How does this all relate to Shadowdark? Because she, Kelsey, has done exactly what everybody should be doing, what everybody should want, and what everybody has been allegedly asking for a long time. Nobody seems to know what her political opinions or views are. They go digging into her Facebook history, into her Twitter history, into everything she's ever said, looking for hints and clues of which side of the political aisle she aggressively supports. You know why? Because all she talks about is her game, what she's putting out there, how she wants people to enjoy it, what she's done, classes that she's taken on her own from her own money to try and build the game, artwork that she has paid for bit and piece over the years to build her game and to create her project. That is what she has spoken about. And you know what? I don't care what lever she pulls when she walks into the voting booth. And outside of the fact that I care for her immortal soul like I do everyone else's, and I hope that she has become or is a member of the one true Catholic Church, beyond that, I don't care who she prays to or if she prays. And I shouldn't, because she's made a game, and none of that would influence my decision on whether or not I wanted to buy Shadowdark. So the thing about it is all of that folds back into one major thing here, and that is we're attacking, a lot of this comes from people attacking success. Now, I don't think Venger, which is really, as far as I can see, where this all spawned from, is Venger getting out of the publishing side of the hobby and basically shutting down his creative side. And some of the things he said about Shadowdark that I believe were taken, and both sides took it and ran with it and took it way out of context, dumped tons of gasoline on this fire. And I think it's a little unfair because I don't think anything he said was meant to be taken the way it's been taken by any of these people, to be perfectly honest. He basically came and said that she's sucking the air out of the room and that it's made it harder and that it's not fun anymore and it affects sales, and so he's stepping out for a bit. And people are just, it's 90 or nothing. They have to have everything on the extreme. Is Kelsey with Shadowdark sucking the air out of the OSR? Yes, she is. Is the economy a zero-sum game? No, it's not. However, is the market infinite? No, it's not. All right, let's unpack that a little bit. She is sucking the air out of the room because currently the OSR market is a certain size. She has stepped in, and yes, she has pulled the temporary resources of a lot of that OSR into her hype, and the people who are feeding off of that hype are going to get the money over people who have what is perceived to be a different system. It's all OSR compatible, but she has built a brand where a lot of people, even in the OSR, are going to see Shadowdark compatible, and they know for a fact they can play it with their new Shadowdark stuff that they're excited about. They don't have to make the connection that anything BX compatible is probably Shadowdark compatible as well. So they can use, say, one of Pundit's books with Shadowdark or one of Venger's books with Shadowdark. But that is what happens. It's just like if you drop something really heavy in a pool of water. For a minute there, all that, you can see the bottom. All that water is shoved up to the sides. But what happens? It splashes right back in. What's more with Shadowdark is a big chunk of her success is her bringing in people from other parts of the hobby. One of the big things you've had is you've had the 5e versus the OSR dynamic in tabletop role-playing games for a long time now. And you've got polarized parts of both those classes. Unfortunately, we both tend to identify with whether or not we're part of the OSR or we're part of the 5e modern player group. And these are the only two extremes, and we forget that the majority of people are actually somewhere in the middle and would probably enjoy both. A small portion came from the OSR, a small portion came from the 5e side, and also the D&D, or most of us came from the D&D side at some point or another. But the vast majority are people who are in the middle who are more than happy to look at both and would have fun playing both, and maybe they started on the 5e side and would like the OSR side better. Maybe they started on the OSR side and would like the 5e side better. And neither one of these groups really wants to be welcoming for whatever reason. What they really want is somebody to independently come up on the other side so they can point and say, oh, there's the good guy. That's one of the good ones over there. Look at him. He's waking up. He's coming to our side, is what they really want. But they don't want anybody who's genuine about it. Well, the OSR cell, we need to convince these 5e players when none of them really want to convince 5e players. Well, Shadowdark did convince a lot of them. So a big part of her success, it's almost like the heavy thing she dropped into the pool is actually a bucket of water. And for a minute, yeah, it's going to suck the oxygen out of the room because it's going to shove all the water up to the sides. We're going to see the bottom. But then the bucket's going to break, and not only is the water going to rush back in, but the water that's in the bucket that she dropped is going to be added too. That clumsy analogy or clumsy metaphor makes sense there. The point is that while she's temporarily sucking the oxygen out of the room, she's also creating a void that is going to bring all that air rushing back in, and we're going to have an oxygen-rich environment very soon because of Shadowdark. It is not a zero-sum game. There is not $10 million of TTRPG money in a given month, and she took up all of this, and D&D takes up all of that, and the other major publishers like Chaosium and Modifius and Palladium, they took up this much, so we're all fighting over the crumbs, and she's done vacuumed up all the crumbs. That's not how it works. Okay, things like Shadowdark bring more people into the market. Like I said, she dropped a bucket of water in. All of those people may come in on Shadowdark, may start with Shadowdark, but eventually they're going to start branching out, and they're going to say, oh man, that's Shadowdark compatible. I can play with that with Shadowdark. Man, I really like that. That dude wrote a game system. Let me pull his core book. Because, hey, hell, I can get it as a PDF for, $9.99. So I'm going to go ahead and pull his core book and have a look at it and see if I like these rules. It's going to expand the market. And that's a good thing. Now, on the flip side, for all the people who are out there shouting what I just shouted about how it's not a finite market and how you can expand the market and it's not a zero-sum game. What you have to remember is that imagine you have a hot water bottle, okay? One of those rubber hot water bottles you use when you get sick. And you're trying to blow it up. We've seen the old strongman, power team, world's strongest man competitions where they literally try to blow these things up and pop them. All right, there's a big, thick rubber bag. Blowing into it is very easy the first breath, and then the second breath. And then as it starts to expand, it gets harder and harder and harder, till it gets to the point where the elasticity and pressure of the bag, the balloon in this case, blowing up, is now more than what your lungs are able to exert to push that any further. That's kind of what happens with the market. It is not simply as easy as go find new players. One of the things that Shadowdark has done is it has made it infinitely more difficult to go get your own unique outside players or outside characters for you to expand the market. Because in our balloon example, our water bottle example, the balloon was kind of halfway full. You can easily just breathe into it, blow it up a little bit more. Well, Kelsey came in and took a big old deep breath and blew it up to almost full capacity. You can still blow in to that balloon and make it expand, but it is now orders of magnitude more difficult to expand the market. That is just a reality. The bigger that market gets, the more difficult it is for you to expand it. So that is something that the people who are harping that it's not a zero-sum game, that the market's not finite, need to understand. She has made it more difficult to expand the market, but she did so by essentially doing the work that everybody else was not doing before, or doing what they were doing far better and grossly expanding the market. And that's really an important because you do have some people who that's what they've got. Now, my opinion, those people are pushing a lot of sour grapes. And they're pushing sour grapes because basically the free ride of extra monthly income from writing from taking your old homebrew Dungeons and Dragons first edition and BX adventures, writing them into a PDF, slapping some AI art on them and chunking them out on the internet for, a couple bucks a PDF or $5 or something, and getting you a nice little $300-400 a month check. Those days are kind of falling by the wayside. You want an example of this? Look at cars. Even as early as the 1990s, so not that far back. You go on the car lot and there were cars with no heater in the south and no air conditioner in the north, no radio, no floor mats. We're talking stripped down. And people bought them. Didn't have any of these features. You go back even further than that, you didn't even have power assist brakes. You had hand crank windows and all this stuff. These are, the power windows and power steering and anti-lock brakes and power brakes and all this stuff. These things were luxury items. They were extra. Now, nobody would go buy a new car. Hell, nobody would go buy a used car that doesn't have these things. Once the overall level of quality has been pushed up, the lower quality stuff becomes less and less and less acceptable. And a lot of your BX, OSR, quote-unquote creators are getting bit by this, and they're pushing a lot of sour grapes. They don't want to admit that my sloppy homebrew BX clone, rules copy paste is not acceptable because it's nothing new, it's nothing special, I'm not bringing anything to the table, and I'm not worth it. They want to say it's because Shadowdark came along and because she has tits and because some influencers liked her that's the problem. No, that's not the problem. The problem is that you've been, trying to get yourself a little extra $20, $30 here and there, a little extra $100, $150 a month, crapping out rehashed, reconditioned garbage. And now rehashed, reconditioned garbage is no longer the standard, and it's no longer something that's acceptable. If you make the car and you show up and it's got disc brake, or it's got drum brakes, and it's got no AC, and it's got no radio, and it's got hand crank windows, unless you got somebody who's looking for an antique or is looking for some side piece project that is just an add-on for them to play with for nostalgia purposes, you don't have a market anymore. And that's because somebody came out and said you can do it a better way. They don't like that. And so they attack Kelsey. I'm going to go ahead and put Pundit partially in this box. Now, despite the fact that Black Lodge Games just went on a wholesale character assassination of Pundit last night, and I'm not going to say that any of it was undeserved. They brought plenty of receipts that show that Pundit did some stuff that deserves some backhanding. Because here's the flip side to that part I was talking about earlier about not going after people just because their political views are different. When you make your stuff, first off, if he tried to cancel people, he's open to cancellation for the same shit. Fair is fair. Second is, if you make social movement, if you make political position part of your platform, then you are 100% open to be canceled and rejected for that. When Wizards of the Coast tries to ram the Alphabet Mafia DEI shit down our throat, rejecting it on those grounds is 100% acceptable. When thirsty sword lesbian people do the same shit and try and ram it down your throat about their alternative lifestyle views, you are 100% within your rights and 100% should reject them on those bases because they've made the identity what everything's about. But I went into the Black Lodge game stream expecting them to predominantly talk about Kelsey and Shadowdark, and they did cover a lot of it. It was a very long stream, and they did cover some of the stuff I've already talked about, and I agreed with them on virtually everything they said. But the thing that they didn't give Pundit really any grace for some of the things that he said that were also true and also accurate. And the long and short of it is they really should have, because they want to complain that he does the same thing, and they practice the same behavior. Now, they did start off their whole stream by, it was almost like a getting it off your chest kind of thing. They basically came out and said, look, we have avoided talking about him since we had our falling out. We deliberately didn't want to get into this, but now has come a time that we have to let it all out. We're going to show everything. It wasn't like they were soft about it. It wasn't like this was beef, and just another step in the struggle where they've been fighting for years. They literally said, hey, look, we have been graceful. We've left this guy alone for this long, so now we're bringing this. But at the same time, when Pundit agreed with them, or Pundit agreed with their points, it was, let's find a way to show that this is him waffling, this is him changing his position, this is him being disingenuous. Here's a reason why you shouldn't give him any credit for this. And then, of course, they would attack him on the things that they disagreed about. I don't think that's correct. Just because the man has done pretty reprehensible things and has probably earned a good bit of ire does not change the validity of the points he made. For lack of a better point here, I don't care if it's Barack Obama or Donald Trump. If they go out and they say the sky is blue and the sky appears to be blue because of the refraction of light in the atmosphere, that's correct. You don't come out and say, well, Donald Trump said the sky is blue, but that's because he's a fucking idiot. And, it's really the sky is whatever color it is from whatever angle you're looking at, or the sky is actually azure, this guy's a moron. Or you don't come out and talk about how Barack Obama's like, I can't believe he didn't say the sky is red, because he probably hates that the sky is blue because it's not communist enough for him. And, he really doesn't know what he's talking about. He talks about refraction of light and stuff, but what about when he took the money and put it into the schools to stop teaching about refraction of light and start talking about rainbows of a different kind? Stupid ass shit, okay? When somebody brings up something that's right, it's right. And it should be recognized that way. Go after people's points. Don't go saying 16 years ago this guy said such and such on a forum and somehow that means we shouldn't be listening to him about this or that his point's wrong. Same thing with the basic expert. You don't sit here and say this guy had an interview with somebody who has some reprehensible views, so he must have reprehensible views too. You don't come in and try and say because this guy shook somebody's hand, you're instantly associated with them, or somebody listened to somebody else's views on gaming, all of a sudden that means they're bad. If you reviewed, if an art critic in Austria in 1929 reviewed one of good old Adolf's paintings and said that his painting was pretty decent and they had a 4-hour discussion about art, you don't come back 10 years later and complain that old Adolf, this art critic was apparently a Nazi because he sat down with Hitler for 4 hours and gave him a platform. Okay? So, Pundit is wrong. Black Lodge is wrong. Focus on the, on the substance of everything here. I'm going to try and wrap this up. Here's the deal, guys. There's no reason why any of us should be attacking Shadowdark. Shadowdark is a good thing, okay? Shadowdark is an example of what we should all want. Shadowdark is a self-made success that is not Wizards of the Coast, that is not a DEI-driven social justice vehicle, that is not trying to ram anything down your throats, that is different enough that it is not just a copy stamp clone. It shows you kind of the level that you need to change something to make it really something different and meaningful. It's a classic, great example and a case study on the kind of grassroots level guerrilla marketing that the OSR has largely failed to do for years. And it's all done by somebody who has not been ramming political ideology or social ideology down your throat. And I don't care if she is a radical leftist, or if she is the most crazy alt-right winger, or if she's a true conservative, or if she's some kind of weird anarcho-syndicalist. The fact that I don't know, and all I know is that she has been very pleasant, very polite to everybody who I've ever heard speak to or about her, that she has come out and created a quality product that she built herself and pulled herself up by her bootstraps and did the work and busted her butt to put it out there just to make a good game, and has kept the focus on the game, not on who she sleeps with or who she doesn't sleep with or what kind of foods are acceptable to eat or what kind of church to go to or any of this other crap that we don't want to hear about. This is the kind of thing that should be celebrated, not condemned. And if you're condemning it, that's some clown door DM BS, if you ask me. That's what it all reminds me of. Just about everybody I've heard raising Cain and crybaby and about Shadowdark reminds me very heavily Condor. And I'm not talking about Venger in that case. Like I said, what Venger came out and said was, hey, look, this stuff has gotten hard. It's gotten hard for me to make my money doing it. I'm not enjoying it anymore. So I'm stepping out for now. The juggernaut is rolling in. I'm getting out of the way for right now. That's not a condemnation. That's not an endorsement. There's nothing wrong with that statement. So this is not this is not about Venger Satanis. What this is about is all the people who globbed on to say that she is somehow a detriment to OSR gaming, to the community, etc., and that she somehow didn't earn what she has, or whatever other version of sour grapes these people happen to be sucking on. So I appreciate you guys putting up with my ramble and my rant here. It's been kind of a long one. Like I said, I tried to write stuff out several times, but every time I did, something new would pop up, and this would come back. And I mean, if you guys want to target, this popped up in X either late last night or this morning, and I had commented on it immediately because I'd already started to make this point in one of my original drafts of this video. And that is, if you want to focus on something that needs to be taken down when it comes to successful Kickstarters and etc., you need to focus on Matt Colville. All right? Matt Colville is borderline running a scam over there. A complete BS non-game built off of YouTube partnerships and the correct asses that he's kissed over the years. Totally motivated by the kind of social nonsense. The guy is a self-righteous jackass who has said God knows how much stuff about the people who wants to buy his game. And like I said, he basically hasn't even made a game. Like, the game changes 14 times a day, and it gets less like a game and more like sitting around and having story circle. We're about to the point where he's going to say, you can play this game with no dice and no books, just send me money. The new no book, no dice, no rules, just sit down and tell each other a story and each person gets a little input. That's the new MCDM game. Please pay me $60 before you sit down and have story circle time. You want to go against somebody, go against his ass. Because there you got, on one hand, you got somebody who has been congenial, who nobody really has a bad experience with, who has been very much about gaming, who put in a tremendous amount of work, who built her, yes, she built her YouTube and her social media following. She leveraged that into guerrilla marketing. She did all the good stuff, but she put in the work, she put in the time, she put a ton of her own money into it, and she built something and then launched it very successfully and gets all the accolades she deserves. And then on the other hand, you've got a fat, groveling, arrogant piece of shit that wants to ride down everybody's throat, who runs down people, who is constantly trying to seed stuff into his videos about how much better he is than you. And he had the money in the backing that he could have done this all on his own, but instead he keeps bilking Kickstarters to make more money and hadn't produced shit yet. If you want to fight one of them, fight the latter. But anyway, that's what I got to say for right now. I hope you guys will hit that old like button, hit the like button, hit the like button, share this video, send it to folks, and subscribe to the channel. I would love to get to that 1,000 mark by Christmas time, and let me know what you think. But I'll see you guys next time, and hopefully we'll be back to gaming and away from the controversy.